Hello and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MSP. This is a Ukraine War Update extra video. I'm going to just discuss an argument I've been having with a pro-Russian voice on my YouTube threads, because actually this is quite an important discussion to have. And it's regarding whether Russia have an answer to HIMARS. HIMARS is a it's a multiple launch rocket system that has really high level of both mobility, hence the high mobility, um, but also a high level of accuracy. It can fire missiles up to, ATACMS can go 300 kilometers, but Ukraine don't have them. So 84 kilometers is the official extent of the range of the munitions they currently fire from HIMARS. Do the Russians have an answer to this? As in, do they have an ability to take these out? No, because they shoot and scoot really quickly. They fire, and then they drive away within a minute. Job done. So it appears that Ukraine still has all the HIMARS they started with, or that they've been given. There doesn't seem to be any evidence that any have been destroyed, despite Russia claiming to have destroyed more HIMARS than the Ukrainians have actually been given. Okay, do they have an answer to this, as in an equivalent? And I said this on a video, they don't have an equivalent. And then this guy, Predsednik77, said, actually, we do. We've got the 9M542, which uses satellite-guided munitions to shoot at things with a range of 120 kilometers, which is actually further than HIMARS, and has, pinpoint accuracy. I said, okay, fair enough. How many do you have? Do you have the same amount in usage? And are they actually firing those? Because these things can fire both the guided and unguided munitions. What's the evidence that these are being used and they're actually effective on the battlefield to make it an equivalent? So I will concede they do have the potential equivalent to HIMARS. So they do have Tornado S. But let's just talk about actually how long they've had these. So although Wikipedia tells you, so the Tornado comes in the Tornado G and the Tornado S varieties. These are kind of like upgraded version of the Grad or the Smirch, which are these kind of look a bit like that, although that's a Tornado G, but that's what the old school ones sort of look like. And the Tornado S, which looks like this, and it has 300 millimeter caliber sort of diameter tubes and can fire 12 of these rockets with pinpoint accuracy. So the improved Tornado S, which delivers up to 12 missiles of 300 mil diameter, has an upgraded with a special GLONASS satellite navigation system used in the BM-30 Smirch missile system. It has guided rocket rounds with a range of 72 miles or 120 kilometers. The Tornado S has a longer range and increased effectiveness due to the new use of the new warhead payloads and a reduced launch readiness time of just 3 minutes. Actually, when I've seen it being set up, and there's a video here that shows this, there seems to be quite a lot of getting out the vehicle and setting it up. Saw on one thread that HIMARS actually have better electronics than these, but pro-Russians are saying these are better than HIMARS. They certainly, well, it depends what ordnance you use on a HIMARS. So, yeah, these got 120 kilometer range, but do they have the 300 range of the ATACMS variant of the HIMARS? It doesn't seem to be so. You can argue about that, but yeah. So Russians sort of laud this, and Tornado S was approved for service in July to August 2016. Started its serial deliveries. 20 Tornado S vehicles were ordered in summer 2019. A new order was made in August 2020. Okay, what happened to those ones that were ordered in 2019? Well, I don't think they have been put in service until I've done a bunch of research on this. But again, you guys probably know more than I do. Some of you will anyway. What I could find is you only started hearing about these in November of last year. So, and it says here, sorry, more missiles were ordered in August 2022. Now, here, Wikipedia is a great resource. People don't understand how to use Wikipedia. It's as good as the sources it uses. So the people writing it, it's not about the quotes themselves. It's like, oh yeah, that's a load of rubbish. It's like, well, how do you know it's a load of rubbish? Because actually, you've got a whole range of sources being used here. By saying Wikipedia is rubbish, you're saying all the sources are rubbish. But actually, there's a massive variety of sources. You need to go through the articles themselves. It's really lazy. I really hate people that say, I don't hate them. But I hate it when people say, "Oh, Wikipedia is really rubbish." It's actually been shown to be as accurate as any other encyclopedia, uh, and it is open to correction all the time. It's an open source source, but it's as good as its sources. So, in order to slag off Wikipedia, you need to look at the sources that's being used in any given article. Here, uh, there is an interesting use of sources for this claim that it was used during the war in Donbass. I don't know that actually the sources do back that up here. You got two sources talking about the Minsk agreement back in 2015. I don't know that the Tornado S was used. And then we've got claims that it was used in 2022. And here are the two sources that claimed it was used in 2022. And these are really problematic generic sources that say Ukraine conflict, Russian forces employ guided rockets. And it basically just makes a claim that they are being used, but no actual evidence that they are being used. So it says evidence is emerging from the conflict in Ukraine, appearing to show that Russian forces are utilizing guided rockets of the Tornado S variety, with video and photographs of the remains of these types appearing across social media. It doesn't actually link it at all, it just makes that claim. So you have to end up going to do this kind of work yourself. The other source that Wikipedia gives is this uh, tweet that Tornado was used as an MLRS, where is a multiple launch rocket strike system. Well, was it used as guided rockets? Well, it talks about ballistic missile attacks. It says that these tornadoes used, bombed residential neighborhoods. Is that the Tornado G or the Tornado S? Okay, so I need to do further research here. So then I go and look at as many places I can find online, like articles talking about Tornado S, and you only really start seeing mention of these being used, as I said, in Ukraine from November onwards. And this seems to be based on some Russian MOD kind of releases that came out that don't really give you any particular detail or evidence. Here, TASS, which is a Russian news agency, says powerful Tornado S multiple launch rocket systems to arrive for Russian troops this year. So back in January last year, the biggest military district, the central military district, was due to get the first delivery of these. So these weren't in use. So I don't understand how they could be used in the Donbass from 20 whatever onwards. So other articles that started popping up on in sort of November time talks about tornadoes in very general terms, saying, "Oh, they're there." They don't give any kind of information about them. But this is an interesting quote from one of them: "A single Tornado S is as effective as 21 conventional BM-21 Grad serial launchers and can devastate tens of hectares at maximum firepower. 6 launchers can halt an entire division or obliterate a small town. That is why its combat effectiveness is compared to nuclear weapons." Right. I'm not necessarily doubting the claim here, but the point is, if that's the case, why are they not being used as such? Like, if these are that devastating, why are we not hearing about them being used in a devastating manner? We're going to get on to evidence of their usage in a second. This is from November, and again, this leads me to believe the first time really you see them being used, or sorry, the first time they have been sent to Russian forces was in November last year. The Russian Defense Ministry received a batch of Tornado G, so those are unguided, not so interesting, and Tornado S MLRS. But again, look at the length of this article. The Russian Ministry of Defense received a batch of multiple launch rocket systems as part of the state defense order from the manufacturer Rostec, and that's it. And they're working, 3 shifts to try and get all this stuff done. So my guess is that they are really struggling to get these things made and out there. And this says nothing about the ammunition itself. In fact, when you start looking for articles on Tornado S on Google, and when you restrict it to in the last month, you get very, very little indeed. One such article is quite interesting from Frontier India. Russian HIMARS Tornado S MLS take on US HIMARS in Ukraine. So this again is the claim that it's outdoing HIMARS or taking them on, but the evidence for them actually being used is very thin on the ground. Here we said. here it said Vladimir Rogov, a representative of the administration of the Zaporizhia region, stated that the Russian Tornado S has become a counterbalance to the American HIMARS system in the Zaporizhia direction. Quote, the appearance of the proper number of Tornado S, I don't know what that means, a proper number, multiple launch rocket systems with guided projectiles makes it possible to hit enemy positions 100%. Yeah, but so this is interesting language. It makes it possible to hit. Yeah, but you haven't done that already, right? So they are just so. In other words, you are getting these, and you haven't yet done that, but it is possible to hit them. That's how I read that. They have meter accuracy. Therefore, now we have a counterbalance. Now we have a counterbalance to American HIMARS system that has proven itself in combat conditions. That's interesting. That has proven itself in combat conditions. So I think, and he said that on January 31st. So I think that says that they haven't had these in the Zaporizhia region until January the 31st. And now we've got them, but they've been proved maybe elsewhere. The central military district is using them somewhere else or whatnot. And then it goes on to, just talk about the generics here. But it's going to be about the projectiles, models of various projectiles there. Well, those are models. Are they building those guided missiles in anything like decent numbers? Here, the article goes on to talk about Colonel Lapin, who was up in the Svato area. I reported on him being sort of dismissed from that, and then he's been moved to somewhere else. Commander of the Central Military District declared in January 2022 that the CMT Jet Brigade would acquire the Tornado in 2022. And that's exactly what I think the November deliveries were. And then the Ministry of Defense released a video about the operational activity of Tornado MRS on November the 20th. Now, when you go and look for evidence of tornadoes being used, this is a video that is all over, say, for example, Twitter. So if you put in Tornado S on Twitter around November, it's just all of these same videos just come up of Tornado being used and it being the most powerful thing in the world, and all the same kind of video. Yeah, being used in a wood. And there's one other video that gets used loads. As you can see, it's all the same sort of video. You're coming through November, and then actually no, sorry. Then the next video that's now doing around is really recent. So I'm going to come back to that in a second. I'm just going to go back to this article. On December the 26th, so that's the end of last year, Izvestia, citing an unnamed representative in the MOD, said a new product line had already been developed. The shells have been mass-produced and are even distributed to the troops. But then this is talking about a really accurate shell, destruction and accuracy has risen, but that's only got a range of tens of kilometers, right? So that's going to be less than or equal to HIMARS anyway. So on and so forth. So it just talks about that in general terms. Then you go to, this is an interesting sort of Ukraine war Reddit thread talking about the kind of quite famous video of Prigozhin talking about this. Well, not talking about tornadoes, but saying that, interestingly, the Dnipro can be taken in 3 years and the Donbass in 1 to 2 years. Well, he says the Dnipro, which is actually, just in case you don't know, the Dnipro comes all the way down here along this sort of watercourse there. That's the Dnipro, and then it turns a corner and comes down there. We know it around the Kherson area. And when I talk about Dnipro, it's generally about Kherson and maybe up into the Zaporizhia area. Well, he's saying that the Russians can only take the Donbass in 1.5 to 2 years, and Dnipro. I don't know whether he means just kind of like that, or like literally Dnipro all the way to Kiev, maybe 3 years. So this in 1.5 to 2 years, and then a further year to take more land. Well, if you're believing Putin, or the claim about Putin that he wants Donbass taken by March, this is Prigozhin and Putin on very different pages. But anyway, what's interesting? That's not really what's interesting to me. Just this is a kind of discussion about Tornado that I'm interested in, which is in this thread. So if you do a Control F and do a look for Tornado, and it comes down here. So this is someone citing Gherkin. Like, although Russia has all the stuff you're thinking about, smart munitions for Tornado S, glide bombs, smart GLONASS kits for 152 mil shells, blah blah blah, and they potentially have all this amazing tech. The reality is, and this is what it says here, it was just never mass produced. Hey, good enough, thought the generals. Best we spend this money on some hookers and new mansions, and whatever. Remains to be seen if they can indeed scale up the production. That's what Gherkin is concerned about. If somebody is working on that at all, I guess we'll see rather soon. This is a question. So they appear to be getting these Tornado S's to the front lines. Like, there is evidence. It appears now that they are there. I mean, this video's come out just yesterday. About, and again, it's always interesting to see the way that these are titled. Russian troops destroy Ukrainian tanks using mortars and MLRS Tornado S. Right, I can't see any evidence of mortars in this video, and there's no evidence of Ukrainian tanks being hit. In fact, all you see are these rockets being fired, right? And interesting as well, it looks like you have to get out and do a whole bunch of stuff on these. As I mentioned, I'm not, there are claims that the electronics are worse than HIMARS on these, and I don't know, you have to do a bunch of this kind of stuff. Anyway, I don't think you have to do that on the HIMARS. But anyway, this video has a load of these guys firing them, but I've seen no evidence of, and then people getting medals. I've seen no evidence of the success of these on the battlefield. So when one of the best places, Telegram and Twitter, when you look on Twitter, where's the evidence of these actually being successful? There are claims. This is going from November to now, and basically you get the same generic stuff. That you look at the images, same images. So it's just recycling the same claims all the time. It's really common with propaganda. Talking about how good tornadoes are. Uses guided munitions. These are way better than HIMARS. Russia's going to win this war. Blah blah blah. And then you're like, okay, brilliant. Okay, I agree. I can agree with all that. They're better than HIMARS. Okay. Where's the evidence that that Russia have an equivalent capability here, and in a sense a capacity of these, and that they are using them effectively? And you start, cycling through and seeing nothing. And the first real evidence that I've seen that definitely evidences these being used is, and again, people claiming it was used at Kramatorsk when the Kramatorsk railway was hit. Maybe, I don't know, not 100% sure, but there is evidence of some of the remains, or the remains of a Tornado S guided munition being used. So you start seeing in, I think, January time. So this is through to December. Yeah, here we go. So reportedly a Tornado S MRLS projectile. So that's at the beginning of December in Zaporizhia. So maybe they did have them in Zaporizhia, reportedly, and then that's recycled a couple of times, and then you start seeing further up here. Sorry about this. I will find it as I go through quickly now. Then a claim in January 24th that they were used on striking Konstantinivka. In fact, that's a strike that I reported myself. But a claim there that it's Tornado S, but without any evidence to particularly substantiate that. You would need to see the end of the remains of the munition. Now, this is a video that the guy that I'm arguing with posted on his own YouTube channel. Said, here's evidence that it's being used at a railway station in Kryvyi Rog, Kryvyi Rih. But actually it's not, it's Chaziv Yar. And this video just shows a tiny white thing going above, and then you get a smoke over there. And then, okay, that could be Tornado S. I have absolutely no idea whether it is or not. And again, the same videos getting repeated over and over, very few very little evidence of actual Tornado S being used. Then towards the end of January, you start seeing claims of, I've just cycled through to just the same videos over and over and over. Then you start seeing claims of an S-300, Ukrainian S-300, as you can see, claimed over and over, being hit by a Tornado S. But again, it's very difficult to verify that was a Tornado S. Could well have been, absolutely. And then there's more evidence of the remains of a ordnance. here. So January the 29th, in the Mykolaiv region, remains of what's purportedly an S-300 300 mil caliber guided guided missile that. And then as well, there's a few claims of S-300 there. It's not S-300, sorry. That's supposed to be a Tornado rocket as well. But again, I wouldn't be able to tell. So the point is that Russia may well have this capability, but we're really not seeing it in any mass usage. We see lots of the same videos. So now, this last couple of weeks, you're starting to see this video, which is this one here, just being thrown around, the same videos. What I would say is this, however, I wonder whether you will start seeing more Tornado S evidence of it being used, because it appears that they do have these rocket launch systems, and they must have at least some of these or shells, or some of these missiles, in order to fire them out of there, these guided missiles, in order for them to be found. But the evidence is very thin on the ground. Beware of a lot of claims that are very vague. They've blown up tanks. Have they? What's your evidence? And would they be using something as rare as these missiles appear to be on something like a tank? I doubt it. These will be used for hitting for hitting very precise targets. And then when you go back to the claim that it was used to hit that apartment block in Konstantinivka, you're like, if these are supposed to be pinpoint accurate, then what's it doing hitting a residential block and having two girls dying or whatever it was? And that was very famously hit on residential area, as all the video footage shows. It wasn't an accumulation of troops. So either that's bad intelligence, or these aren't as accurate as you're claiming, or that is an S-300, sorry, a Tornado S being used in possibly in its unguided capability. So this is to me, this is interesting, because he's got a point here. There is an equivalence to the HIMARS, but do Russia? There's a difference between having the equivalent and like having the equivalent, like on the battlefield. Like, there is no equivalent, because they're not using it. Or are they using it a little bit? Are we going to start seeing it used more? Will they get a more mass produced ordnance that can go into this thing and be fired? I don't know. Do the Ukrainian forces have the ability to harness real time intelligence and satellite imagery to be able to locate some of these and take them out in a way that Russia cannot do to HIMARS? Are we seeing? I mean, because if I was in the Ukrainian command, I would be thinking, right, what are the game changers? Like, HIMARS was a game changer for the Ukrainians. What are the game changers for Russia that they either have or could get more of? This would be my number one thing now. Like, Tornado S is a potential equivalent for HIMARS, and HIMARS is a game changer. So I would be trying to put all my effort into eliminating these, and I would assume that Ukraine are probably doing the same. Are they managing to take some of these out or not? I don't know. Anyway, that's just a little introduction into Tornado S, and the fact that you know finding information on this is like actual information on its practical use on the battlefield is very thin on the ground. I find this problematic for these kind of claims of equivalence. However, we might start seeing it more, and if we do, then it will arguably become an equivalent to the HIMARS. Let me know what you think, and if you know more information on this, I would love to know. I'm learning all the time. I'm no great oracle, so I can learn often through you guys. Hopefully, this was of use to you. Toodle Pep, speak to you soon.